Syracuse basketball is doing a tremendous job in terms of being present, and that is what you are seeing with Donnie Freeman, who's picking up crystal balls and predictions to come to Syracuse, and Syracuse's coaching staff is not letting up on the gas pedal. Plus, we've got some transfer news for Cuse football. We've got some Joe Girard news. We have got some women's lax talk. We've got some year one expectations for Coach Autry at Syracuse. There is a ton to talk about today. We're continuing the mailbag with a little bit of spice from some other places in terms of news around Syracuse athletics. Let's get the ball rolling because we have so much to talk about on your Locked On Syracuse Thursday.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome into your Thursday episode of Locked On Syracuse. I'm Owen Valentine saying thank you so much for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. A lot to talk about today. It's sort of like, if any of you remember from over the summer, me and Bones and I started doing like this, that, and the other thing type episode every once in a while when there were a lot of smaller news stories coming together. And that's sort of what today feels like. A lot of small stories that will comprise our Thursday episode. And I think the biggest one has to do with Syracuse basketball and Donnie Freeman. We talked about Donnie Freeman on our Tuesday episode of the show. He has picked up a crystal ball from 24/7 to come to Syracuse from an analyst that's only gotten, I believe, 2 predictions wrong ever. In the history of him making predictions. So a 98% success rate from him it's a big nod. So you get 2 more predictions from a couple of guys over at Rivals as well. And you're starting to get rumblings that Donnie Freeman to Syracuse could be the reality that we are just waiting to hear be confirmed. And what you get with Donnie Freeman, as we discussed on that Tuesday episode, is your best recruiting class since 2016, bringing in Elijah Moore, top 100 player, and Donnie Freeman, a top 35 player. It's going to be the first time you've had 2 top 100 recruits since 2016. And leading up to that, you were an absolute powerhouse in terms of bringing in classes with multiple top 100 recruits. And this seems like exactly what Syracuse fans. It was reported by Mike McAllister that the entire Syracuse men's basketball coaching staff would be meeting with Donnie Freeman. That is going to go such a long way. We talked about it yesterday. Being present goes such a long way in life, in recruiting, in basketball, in community building, in culture building. Being present is what can go as far as anything in today's day of basketball. And that was confirmed in an article over at Syracuse.com talking about why Elijah Moore is staying with Syracuse. And it has to do with Syracuse's coaching staff, Adrian Autry specifically, being consistently present, repeatedly being at games, continually being there for these players and being seen. It's not a text every once in a while. It is you being at every single game. And that goes so far because that's a level of commitment that you are giving to a player that, in all honesty, owes you nothing at this point in time, right? When you're talking to recruits, they owe you nothing. They are a part of nothing with you. And you are showing them time and time again, game in and game out, that you are there for them regardless of what they choose to do in a month, in 2 months, in a week when they decide to declare where they're going to college. That goes a really long way. And seeing somebody who is there for you, this goes beyond basketball and is a life comparison, in all honesty, right? When you know that someone is there for you, no matter what, whether you talk every day, things like that, they're always present, it means a lot. and it goes further. And it's a deep connection that really does, surpass recruiting, surpass basketball, and bring you into the reality that is this world. And that is what Adrian Autry, in about 2 months being the head coach for Syracuse basketball, has shown and demonstrated, is that he is going to be present and be there as often as humanly possible for these priority targets for Syracuse basketball. And that is why you are seeing the success in terms of recruiting recently, in terms of transfers, in terms of Elijah Moore saying, even though the Adam Weitzman contract that theoretically would have come to fruition is no longer there, I'm still there because Adrian Autry has been there the entire time. That's what you're seeing. And if you have questions about Adrian Autry at this point, I think you need to brush him under the rug because he is showing you recruiting-wise what we have been yearning for from Jim Boeheim in recent years, to get out there, to continue to be there, to show that you want to see that. And in 2 months, he has done nothing but that. And this is the start of the transition that people have been yearning for. Donnie Freeman's commitment, I don't want to say it seems really likely, but everything I see, I mean, he picked up an offer yesterday from Georgia Tech. What does that mean? I don't know. But everything I'm seeing shows that what Syracuse is doing means a lot to him, as it means a lot to everybody else that they have been working towards. And it means something when you see, and I mean this, in no harm, right? When Alan Griffin shows up to your game alone versus when Adrian Autry, Jerry McNamara, Alan Griffin, and Brendan Strawn all show up together, right? That naturally means more. When you send one assistant versus an entire coaching staff, it shows what you want to do. And when you send one guy, maybe it indicates to this player, they're interested in me, they care a little bit, they want to talk to me. When you send the coaching staff and you show this player that we are nowhere else right now, every single one of our assets in terms of recruiting is right here because that is what you can do for us. That is what we think of you. And that is the type of commitment we are giving to you right now. No wonder people are showing that they want to play for Adrian Autry. JJ Starling has demonstrated he wants to play for Adrian Autry. Chance Westry has demonstrated that he wants to play for Adrian Autry. Elijah Moore, with NIL up in the air, and I talked about this yesterday, I don't think anyone would have faulted him, knowing that the NIL theories about a possible $1 million contract with Weitzman is out the door if he would have gone somewhere else where the NIL opportunities aren't out the door. And he stays right there because of one man, and that's Adrian Autry, and the consistent commitment he shows. The commitment that Adrian Autry has given to each of these players in 2 months as a head coach is admirable, is the reason that Syracuse can be successful moving forward, and the reason that even though I was a little bit up in the air about how successful Adrian Autry would be as the replacement, right? You think an internal hire in a team that has been struggling might not work. That was my big concern. He has proven me wrong off the court in terms of recruiting immediately. Will the on-the-court success happen? That's a topic for a little bit later, but we'll take a quick break because I think that's worth talking about, is the success that he has shown in 2 months in terms of his commitment to players, which goes such a long way. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, we'll keep talking about Adrian Autry. We got some questions over from the Twitter sphere. Caleb Patry asking about the year one expectations for our guy that is the head of Syracuse basketball moving forward. We'll take a quick break. We'll talk about Built Bar, and then we will be right back. If you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, you need the best tasting protein bar ever. It's Built. You got to try this. If you're like me, I'm trying to slim down. I'm trying to lose a few pounds, but I don't want to compromise on taste. I like my food, and you can't fault me for that. I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars, Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy. They taste amazing. Seriously, they're amazing, and you won't even think they're good for you. You got to try them. What makes them so good? They're covered in 100% real dark chocolate. That's right. It's real chocolate, and they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. I don't know how they do it, but it tastes like a candy bar, and they maintain amazing macros: 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at built.com, but now you can get them at Walmart or Sam's Club, while you can still get your specialty flavors online at built.com. Built.com, Walmart, Sam's Club. Get yourself some Built Bars or Puffs, and then you can thank me later. All right, we talked about the Donnie Freeman theories right now, and the effects of Syracuse's coaching staff being present consistently in this recruiting cycle. Now we're going to take to Twitter. We were doing a mailbag yesterday. I didn't get to everything, so we'll finish up the mailbag today. Caleb Patry asking about the year one expectations for Coach Autry, also asking about the Maui Invitational. I'm going to put that off until we get a little closer to season or a little bit further into the off season for now, but we will hit on that at some point in terms of the teams that Syracuse could, in theory, be facing off with down there. But right now, we'll talk about the year one expectations for Adrian Autry. Personally, I think they're pretty high in my mind. I think Syracuse fans, and you could say this is wrong if you want to, Syracuse fans seem like they're looking for an immediate impact. Now, the severity of that immediate impact is differing, right? Some people might say they're already satisfied because of what you've seen in terms of recruiting so far. Some people might say they won't be satisfied until Syracuse is back in the tournament. And I think some people might not be satisfied until Syracuse is contending for national titles. Where do I fall on that scale right now? I think year one success for Adrian Autry is getting Syracuse basketball back in the tournament comfortably. What do I mean by that? I don't want Syracuse to be the bubble team that squeaks their way in at the end. I'd like Syracuse to be a team that's just in the tournament because they have done so and they have earned the right to be in there without controversy, without question, without things up in the air. I think that, to me, would indicate year one success. That would involve you having a decent non-conference, probably an above decent non-conference. That would involve you competing in the ACC and getting towards the top third of the ACC once again, game or two in the ACC tournament. But I think year one success for Adrian Autry is getting you back in the tournament comfortably. And in terms of expectations, I think that is my expectation based on the roster that currently sits there and the possibilities, if you can get a big, for this team to be successful, especially if Judah Mintz determines that he is going to come back and play another year in Syracuse. That will go really, really far. My expectations are just that. Get into the tournament. I think they can do it. And show Syracuse fans that you are ready to set things in the right path and that the right path is underway at this point in time for Syracuse basketball. If you think the expectations are too high, if you think that they're not high enough, feel free to let me know in the comments over here on YouTube. Drop the comment in there. Tweet at me at LO_Syracuse over on Twitter. Do what you can. I'm curious to see what your year one expectations are for Autry. I don't want to overshoot it, right? I think if I went out here and said year one expectations for Adrian Autry need to be a Final Four or an Elite Eight, I'm pushing the envelope a ton. But I think saying a comfortable appearance in the tournament is not something that is too easy, right? Because you've gone back years without pulling that off. And we know, right? 64 teams make the tournament and 250 don't in Division I college basketball. You want to get there. So I think that is a feasible goal in terms of realistic expectations that would indicate a successful year one for Coach Autry? Is there a higher ceiling for this team? If Judah comes back, if they find a center in the portal with immediate eligibility, because as we've mentioned a couple times, and sometimes it just slips the brain, in all honesty, right? There's no guarantee that Musa Cisse is immediately eligible. There's no guarantee that Javonte Brown-Ferguson might be immediately eligible. Multiple transfer players looking for a waiver to be able to play there. If you can get a big, if Judah comes back, the ceiling for this team should be even higher than being in the tournament. The ceiling for this team with those two additions, with Judah coming back and another addition at the center spot in terms of a starting big man that can score in some capacity, could be an Elite Eight type ceiling. And it brings the floor up tremendously as well. So I think the expectations, a fair expectation to return to the tournament. And if you get some things that fall in your favor in the coming weeks, right? We got just about one more month before Judah Mintz has to make that decision on whether or not he is coming back or staying in the draft. But that ceiling could be very, very high with the right pieces in place. And a lot of the pieces are sitting there right now. You just need that magic puzzle piece to get everyone together. We'll see if that happens. Next question. Let's talk a little bit about Joe Girard. Just a quick hit. Joe Girard on Twitter yesterday announces that next year he is going to be a Tiger. A little bit of a pun there. Not really a pun, but that means he's narrowed down to his final two. Those have been the two visits that he has taken at this point: LSU and Clemson, both of whom's mascot is a tiger. Go Tigers, as the one and only Coach O might say. It's interesting because as many have pointed out, as I've been sort of secretly hoping for, Clemson plays Syracuse twice next season. I am a little bit more of a Joe Girard backer, a Joe Girard supporter, than much of the Central New York basketball cohort has been. And I'd love to see what Joe could do in a return to the Dome in a slightly different shade of orange. I'm all in. I hope he goes to Clemson. I think that would be very fun. My sister goes to Clemson. I think that will be a funny one to keep him in the Valentine family of schools, if you will. I think that would be absolutely awesome to see Joe Girard play Syracuse 2 times next year, just to see what happens, just to let chaos ensue, and just to stir the pot a little bit. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Somebody made the point on Twitter that apparently Joe Girard just wants to watch good football for his final year of eligibility. I thought that was a good one. We'll keep you in the loop. Anything we hear, do my best to follow along with that. But Joe Girard down to 2 schools, going down south. You know what? I spent a little bit of time down south last week on the other side of the country, down in Arizona. The South is fun. You can't fault a guy for it. You can't fault a guy for it because there is a lot of fun to be had in the South. So good for him. Curious to see if we can find any insight on some of the NIL possibilities with Gerard. We talked to Brent Axe, who was mentioned that the numbers that are sort of rumbling surrounding Joe Girard are pretty impressive. So good for him. Get some cash, right? He is not an NBA player. No one here is telling you that. So make a little bit of money, do your thing, and then we'll see what happens next for Mr. Girard, who, as much as you want to talk badly about him, as much as you want to talk negatively about him, in 4 years, Joe Girard became a top 20 scorer in Syracuse basketball history. So was he frustrating at times? Sure. Is he a top 20 scorer in history? Yes. Take that for what it's worth. All right, we'll talk a little bit about women's lax now. SHGSG over on Twitter wants a little women's lax chatter, and rightfully so. They won their first round ACC tournament game yesterday. I believe it was 14-12 against Virginia Tech, a little bit closer than maybe they would have liked it to be. But this is, it doesn't have to be pretty come tournament time, right? You don't have to do what UConn did and win every game in the tournament by 20,000 points. You can just win games by one, and you still advance to the next round. That's a really fun concept in the tournament. Is it doesn't have to be a pretty win. It just has to be a win. In a 14-12 final for the Cuse women's Lax, moving on and continuing in the ACC tournament. Semifinals coming up soon. I'm excited. I keep saying get on the train. You don't need a ticket. You just get on board because this is a team that's so fun to watch. You've got Megan Tyrell breaching 400 career points at Syracuse, the all-time leading point getter for the Orange, doing tremendous things. They announced the all ACC teams the other day, and it just is Syracuse lacrosse, in all honesty. Your all ACC first team, 3 players, Delaney Schweitzer in goal. She is phenomenal. Megan Tyrell, as we talk about, Emma Ward, first team all ACC nods. Your second team all ACCers, Emma Tyrell, Megan Carney, Sierra Cockrell, phenomenal players as well. You got an all freshman team in Coco Vandeveer as well. This team is star-studded. They're fun to watch. They are the best team in the country, and if you disagree with me, I'd love to see you tell me why they're not. Yes, they dropped a game to BC, a game that maybe they were leading and let loose a little bit. They let go with the lead. We'll not talk about that. This is a team. Get ready. Make some Memorial Day weekend plans because Cuse is going to be playing. Cuse is going to be playing. If you don't watch lacrosse, if you don't watch women's lacrosse, if you think lacrosse is terrible, I can test you to watch this Cuse women's Lax team play and see if your opinion changes a little bit. They're fun to watch. They're high energy. They're explosive. The sideline antics are tremendous. Strap in. You're going to have a good time. Turn it on your Saturday. Turn it on and just enjoy. It's a fun sport to watch when you are this good and can bring that type of energy to the field. Game in and game out. What Kayla Trainer has going over there is phenomenal. Watch, please. Last thing before we wrap up our episode for today, some transfer news, a little surprising transfer news on the football sphere. Jatius Gear, defensive lineman for Syracuse with 3.5 3 tackles. Third of the transfer portal. I don't know if I even want to talk about it. I might have alluded to this in the past. I am sad talking about Syracuse football. It doesn't make me excited. And you can yell at me. You can say I'm too negative. I don't see reasons to buy in. They lose the entire coaching staff outside of the one man that people want out. They lose every notable player for the most part from the defensive side of the ball to the draft to the portal. They're not bringing in a good recruiting class. No offense to them. I'm glad you're coming to Syracuse, the very few of you that are. But I'm struggling to sell myself on Syracuse football. And the world is not always the happiest place. I want to talk about some positives. I want to talk about some things that make me smile, that are at least exciting for me or entertaining for me. And Syracuse football conversations, quite frankly, are not exciting for me right now. And maybe as the season gets closer, maybe if they, win a couple of games early on, that'll bring me in. But my mentality surrounding Syracuse football right now, it's not what it needs to be. So if you got something big to say or something positive or something to sell me on Syracuse football, please let it out. I want to be sold on Syracuse football. I want to be excited to talk about them. But in all honesty, I'll put the hand up and speak right now from the heart. I'm not excited. And I'm not really on board anything with regards to Syracuse football right now. They got the draft coming up. That's something to be excited about. But in terms of the active team, what's going on in Syracuse, not so much. Hate to end on a somber note, so let's spin zone, talk a positive with Syracuse football, even though I just said there were none. You might have 4 players drafted from Syracuse for the first time since 2006. Matthew Bergeron, second round action. Look for him picked on Friday evening. Sean Tucker. Is he an end of day 2, early day 3? Who knows? Garrett Williams. Where's he go? I'm thinking day 2, right later on day 2. And the big question mark, Mikel Jones, a guy who I'm sure Syracuse fans can tell you the type of impact he can have on a team because of who he is as a person, what he can do in terms of effort, in terms of skill, even being undersized. Very much worth taking a chance. Does that mean that he becomes a UDFA? Who knows? Does that mean someone takes a pick on him late on day 3? Who knows? If you want more draft coverage, last Friday's episode, a preview with PFF's Max Chadwick about the draft for Syracuse football. Check that out. The draft does start tonight. If you're looking for more on the draft, Locked On has got some draft coverage for you. Feel free to check that out. A full mock draft. All of the episodes are out, and you got enough time to knock that out before the draft starts this evening. So thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today and every day. If you're looking for more from Locked On, check that out. If you're looking for more from me, check out the draft preview episode from Max Chadwick and myself. But until tomorrow, that'll do it. We'll see what happens. Until then, I'm Owen Valentine. Be kind. Make somebody smile today. Have a little bit of fun. I think the sun might be shining in central New York. And I will catch you tomorrow. Peace.